In this video, we're going to install a DNS server that will be done on Fedora Linux with the latest updates applied, and we'll be using bind for this installation. For the first step, we need to install the packages necessary to do the setup. So we'll do a DNF install -y bind and bind utils, enter, and it will automatically go through the whole process. Alright, the next step will be to edit our named.conf file. So we'll do let's do a clear first. Do a vi etc named.conf, and we will edit the listen on field or line. So after the first semicolon, we'll do an A for append, and we'll put in the IP address of our DNS server, which will be 192.168.1.16 in this case, and semicolon at the end of that. Do an escape and go to allow query, do an append at the semicolon, and we will add 192.168.1.0/24 and a semicolon at the end of that. Do an escape, right quit, actually do an escape, and then arrow down to the line with the RFC 1912, just toward the bottom. Right there, RFC 1912. Let's do a Shift O and enter, and then we'll arrow up one so we have a space on top and bottom. And we will put in our zone information. So we'll type in zone and the DNS server name, which is in this case DNS01.server.local, to end quote, and a capital I, capital N, and an open brace, enter. Next line will be type, which is master, semicolon, enter, file, forward.server.local, end quote, semicolon, and allow update, which is space there, which is none, semicolon, closed brace, another semicolon. And at the bottom of that, we'll do the final closed brace, semicolon, enter. We'll arrow down a couple of lines to make space, and we'll do the reversed zone file setup. So zone 1.168.192.in-addr.arpa, closed quote, capital I, capital N, and an open brace. Next line, enter, file, or type, master, file, and in this case it's reverse.server.local, closed quote, semicolon, enter, allow update. Let's just go ahead and put a space in there, keep uniform. And this will be none, semicolon, closed quote, or closed brace, and end semicolon, enter, and then we'll do the final closed brace, semicolon. And that is it. So let's go ahead and do an escape, right quit, exit this file, and we'll move on to the next step. So our next step will be to create our forward.server.local file and our reverse.server.local file. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do a vi var named forward .server.local, enter, and we'll enter insert $TTL 86400 at tab in, capital I, capital N, tab SOA, tab DNS01.server.local, period, root.server, period, and open parenthesis, enter. Let's do a tab 2011.071.001, tab, semicolon, serial, tab 3600, refresh, 1800, retry, 604800, expire, and 86400. And that will be minimum TTL. Enter, and we'll do a closed parenthesis, enter, another at, and one tab, in, capital I, capital N, two tabs, capital N, capital S, two tabs, DNS01, .server.local with the period at the end, enter, do another at, tab, capital IN, two tabs, A, that's capital A, and 192.168.1.16, which is the IP for our DNS server. Enter. Now we'll have the host name of the DNS server, which is DNS01. Tab over to the end, do a capital IN, capital A, 192.168.1.16. Enter. Client, capital IN, A, and this will be the IP address for the client, which is 192.168.1.20. Enter, and let's do an escape right quick to save this file. Enter, and now we'll create the reverse.server.local file. In this case, all we need to do is just edit the previous command. Enter, insert, and then we'll do another at or $, TTL 86400. Enter, at, tab, capital IN, tab, capital SOA, tab, DNS.server.local, DNS01, period, root.server.local, period, a space and an open parenthesis, enter. Let's go ahead and tab over, do a 201107.1001, tab, semicolon, and serial, 3600, refresh, 1800, retry, 604800, should be expired, and 86400, which will be minimum TTL. Enter, we'll put in the closed parenthesis, and hit enter. This line will do at, capital N, capital NS, DNS01.server.local, period, enter. We'll do another at, capital N, PTR, and this will be server.local, period. All right, let's go ahead and do enter. This will be the DNS server hostname, DNS01. Do a capital N, capital A. This will be 192.168.1.16 IP address for the DNS server. 1.16. Enter, and then client. This will be another N, capital A, and this will be the IP address for the client, which is .20. 1.20. Enter. So this next line will be the last octet of the DNS server, which will be 16. We'll have N, capital PTR, and this will be the DNS server information. So DNS01.local, period. Enter, and this will be this next line will be the last octet of the client's IP address, which is 20. Tab over, we'll do another capital N, another capital PTR, and this will be the client information, which is client.server.local with a period at the end. And that is it for that. So let's go ahead and do an escape right quick to save the file. Enter. And in our next step, we'll be changing file permissions, doing firewall changes, and then checking the the files we just created to make sure that we use the proper syntax and there's no errors in the file. So let's go ahead and move on to that. In this step, let's go ahead and do a clear first. Now for the next step, we're going to change the group and the ownership of the folders and the file for the named.conf. So let's do a change group. That'll be var named. So we're going to make the group that this is a member of named. And now we're going to change ownership of the named.conf file to root. So let's go ahead and do shown-v root. And then we're going to add it to the group named. So named etsy named.conf. Okay, let's go ahead and do an ls -l on the etsy folder and named.conf. And that is owned by root and it's part of the named group, so that's what it's supposed to be. So let's do a clear. Let's go ahead and need to change the SE Linux context on that same directory and that same file. So let's do a restorecon -rv var named, and we will do a restorecon for the etsy named.conf file. All right, now our next step is going to be opening the firewall or adding the DNS service to the firewall. So let's do a firewall command, add service equals DNS, and make that permanent. Success, and we will do a reload on the firewall rules. Success. Okay, so our next step will be to check the config files to make sure that everything is set up properly, there are no syntax errors, and that everything is set up the way it's supposed to be. So let's go ahead and move on to that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check the configuration name.conf file, check the config to make sure it's properly set up. So we'll do a named check conf, and that will be etsy named.conf, and we should get an OK if everything is set up properly, or we should get no output if everything is set up properly. So looks like we're good there. Our next step is to check the forward and the reverse files that we created earlier, the two zone files, to make sure they're set up properly. So let's do a named check zone forward.server.local, and then the path to that is var named forward.server.local, and hit enter. We have OK, so that tells us that the config file is set up properly. We'll do the same thing for the reverse. Same information as our previous command, except we'll change this to reverse, and the same here, and enter. And we're good. Both of our files are set up properly. So next thing we'll do is we'll enable our service, our DNS server service to start automatically on boot up, and then we'll start the service itself afterwards. So we'll do a system control enable, and the name of the service is named. Enter. All right, so this sets it up so that whenever the machine reboots, this automatically starts up. And we'll do the same thing to start the service. Enter. And let's do a status to make sure this started properly. And it says active running, which is a good sign. And we have enabled, which shows that it's configured to start up on reboot or the system's rebooted. So we're good. Let's do a Control C. Back to the prompt. Let's do a clear. And then our next step will be to test the DNS server to see if it's functioning properly. So let's go ahead and move on to that. First thing we need to do before we move on to the next step is edit our resolve.conf file and then set it up so it doesn't rewrite itself whenever the system boots up. So we'll vi the etcresolve.conf file. And we need focus, so vi resolve.conf, and we will move up to this name server line. We'll do a YYP to duplicate this line. Do an escape, we'll move up to the first one, do an insert, # to comment that out, or to make that line inactive. We'll move down to the second entry. Let's go ahead and hit an escape, and we'll do an XXX until the IP address is gone, and we will do an append, and we will put in the IP address for our DNS server, which is 192.168.16. Okay, and that should do it for that. So let's do an escape, right quit to save this file, and we'll go ahead and set the permissions to make sure this doesn't rewrite itself to the default settings after the system's rebooted. So we'll do a -F plus I and etcresolve.conf. Enter. All right, so we should be good there. Let's go ahead and do a clear. And first thing we'll do is do a dig, and we'll just pick google.com. So we'll see if this resolves to the IP address using our DNS server. And yes, it's using port 53, and that's our DNS server, and we have the IP address for google.com there. So that works. One thing that also shows this is functioning is this entry here. This should not be all zeros. If this is all zeros, then something's not correct. But as far as this goes, we're good. So let's go ahead and end here. As always, if you like my videos, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it. I'll add content as I'm able to create it as time permits. But as usual, I plan to update as often as possible. So keep checking back, and thank you for watching. See you next time.